During the 3DS era, Nintendo was experimenting a lot with new digital-only IPs like Pushmo and Rusty's Real Deal Baseball. While these games are niche, they seem to be pretty well remembered. However, there was another series that I hear even less about, which is strange considering it's one of the few games in this era that actually made it to the Switch. Additionally, the rarest amiibo out there is actually from the series and now goes for over $400, but I'll get to that later in the video. I'm of course talking about BoxBoy. At first glance, it doesn't look like much. In fact, it looked like the exact opposite. Black and white visuals, a pixel box as the main character, a name that sounded like a knockoff action figure, but for people who actually downloaded it, it was a really intuitive game. To understand BoxBoy, you have to understand where it came from and more importantly, who it came from. The series was developed by HAL Laboratory, the same folks who gave us Kirby and Smash Bros, among other games, and that's important because HAL's design has always been about implementing their own really unique ideas. With Kirby, it was, what if a pink puffball could copy enemies and float around? With Smash, it's what if a fighting game wasn't about combos but chaos, and with BoxBoy, the question was even simpler. What if a box could make boxes? That's it. That's the entire mechanic of BoxBoy. Qbby, our square little geometry dash looking protagonist, can create strings of boxes from his own body. He could toss them, use them as bridges, stack them to hit switches, protect himself from lasers, hook himself around ledges, hang from ceilings, walk midair, you name it. And over time, the game challenges you to use that mechanic in increasingly clever ways. We'll get into that later. Released in April 2015 exclusively for the Nintendo 3DS eShop, BoxBoy didn't make headlines. There was no commercials, no E3 demo booths. Sort of just appeared, and at first glance it looked like a free-to-play mobile game, but appearances were the point. The game is entirely black and white, no 3D models, no textures, just line art. Clean but very simple and feels like a Game Boy style game with clear graphics if that makes sense. And here's the twist, it's not an easy game. BoxBoy quickly teaches you how to make boxes in a line. You can only make a certain number at once, say 4 boxes at a time, and once you place them, they're gone until you reset. The beauty is in how the game forces you to think creatively within that limitation. You might need to build an L shape to activate a switch while standing on another, or dangle a set of boxes over a ledge to hook around and climb, or make a line of boxes to block lasers while timing a jump through a collapsing platform. Every level is a bite-sized brain teaser, sort of like how Pushmo was, and I covered that in another video, so you should subscribe and check that out. Nintendo really seemed to love their quirky box-themed puzzle games around this time. Each one feels different and most pose a good challenge. Not impossible, but always asking you to think just a little bit differently than last time. And the pacing in this game, it's nearly perfect. New mechanics are introduced constantly, but never all at once. Conveyor belts, portals, time switches, gravity reversals, and the brilliance is, BoxBoy never over-explains anything. It just trusts you to learn by doing, to try, fail, and eventually get that aha moment we all chase in puzzle games. There's no live system just like in Pushmo, there's no death penalty, little stress. It's quiet, it's thoughtful, and it's rewarding in a way that very few games, even among Nintendo's best, manage to be. And let's talk about Qbby for a second, because it's not just the gameplay that makes BoxBoy special, it's the overall vibe of the game. Qbby has no mouth, no voice, he doesn't jump high, he doesn't do anything flashy. He's a square, no offense, but he's got personality. He's not designed to be a mascot, he's designed to be a blank canvas, and that's what makes him so weirdly lovable. And in that minimalist design, HAL somehow created one of Nintendo's most unique modern characters, not through lore and not through backstory, just through simplicity. BoxBoy wasn't anything crazy, it was a fairly simple but challenging puzzle game that could be a fun time waster on the go. But that was just the beginning, because in 2016, a little over a year after Qbby made his debut, BoxBox Boy dropped on the 3DS. And I know what you're thinking, wait, they just doubled the name? Yes, and they also doubled the boxes. In BoxBox Boy, HAL took the core mechanic, the idea that Qbby can create one set of boxes per level, and said, what if you could spawn 2 sets of boxes before resetting? I guess you could say Nintendo was really thinking outside the box. Sounds like a small change, right? But it completely transforms the logic of the puzzles. One set of boxes might become a platform, the second becomes a barrier, or maybe one set helps you hit a switch, while the other becomes a bridge for your actual body to get across. Instead of just solving the puzzle in one linear move, you're layering mechanics using multiple sets of boxes for different purposes, sometimes even in parallel. And the result, BoxBox Boy, becomes less about survival and more about execution and planning. It's not necessarily harder than the first game, in fact some may even think it's a little easier because of the added freedom, but it asks you to think like a designer. How would I structure this solution if I had 2 tools instead of 1, but that wasn't the only thing HAL changed. They quietly expanded the world of BoxBoy as well. For the first time, you started seeing more hints of narrative throughout the game. There was a surprisingly emotional story in the first game that was revealed, but it kind of just came out of nowhere. If you really want to look up the story in that game, I don't want to spoil it here, even though it's obviously not that much. In this game, Qbby has friends, other box-shaped beings who waved at him from the menu screen, and it was just a nice little addition to make the game world feel less lonely. The third game in the series is arguably the most ambitious. Bye-Bye BoxBoy doesn't just iterate on the formula, it redefines how you interact with it. This time around, you still get one set of box per use, but here's the twist. There are now special box types that change everything. You get warp boxes that let you teleport from one point to another, bomb boxes that explode after a delay, breaking walls and opening new paths, remote boxes that can be detached and moved independently, and rocket boxes that shoot Qbby through the air like a cube-shaped missile. Suddenly it's not just how do I stack these boxes, it makes you ask, what's in the box? If you get that reference, comment below. It's the problem solving, yes, but also experimentation, trial and error in the best way. And then there's more story again. In Bye-Bye BoxBoy, HAL finally gives Qbby a more overarching story. The game opens with Qbby arriving on a new planet, or at least that's what it seems like, and discovering tiny baby Qbies called Qbabies who need to be escorted to safety. Yes, this game adds escort missions, and somehow they're good, unlike many other games that Nintendo has made. These baby boxes follow you, but they're vulnerable. They can't touch spikes or lasers, and they don't jump. So your boxes become shields, bridges, and lifelines to keep them alive. It turns what was a mechanical puzzle game into a game about caregiving, about responsibility, and suddenly this minimalistic platformer was making you feel things, not through cutscenes or dialogue, but through action and design. Qbby isn't just solving puzzles anymore, he's helping others survive. And then comes the ending, which is a bittersweet moment. I don't want to spoil it here, but if you played this game you know, or you could look it up if you'd like. But it really felt like the end, the final chapter in Quiet Trilogy, and with the 3DS fading into the background in 2017, that felt appropriate. But Qbby had one more trick up his little square sleeve, and before I get to the last game in the BoxBoy series, I just want to talk about the BoxBoy amiibo. Released exclusively in Japan, it came with a soundtrack and a physical copy of the 3 BoxBoy games, all around the equivalent of $28 or so, which is a really good deal for 3 games plus an amiibo. Nowadays, if Nintendo made that, they'd probably charge like $70 for this. But if you do want to buy this, like the physical games and the amiibo, it's going to cost you over $400. Like, these are fun games and the amiibo's cool, but I don't think $400 is worth it. Maybe you do. It really sucks we never got this in the West, because even beyond the amiibo, it would have just given more people a chance to play these games now that they're all gone. However, there is one game in the series you can still play. In 2019, after a 2-year silence, Qbby made the leap to the Nintendo Switch in a full, proper HD release called BoxBoy plus BoxGirl. This was the moment fans have been waiting for. The series was finally on another system instead of being exclusive to an outdated console. The core gameplay remains as blocks, puzzles, brain teasers, but the headline feature is co-op multiplayer. For the first time ever, you and a friend can play as Qbby and QC. Yes, she's canon now apparently, and you solve the puzzles together. This isn't just a gimmick, it fundamentally changes how the game is structured. Now you're solving puzzles that require 2 players to coordinate using their own boxes in tandem. One player might build a staircase while the other stands on it, or one might create a platform while the other hits a switch. And I guess you could say this game hit the switch. And here's the best part, if you don't have a friend, the game includes a solo campaign, as well as a full 3rd campaign featuring Tall BoxBoy, a Qbby variant who can stack vertically, 3 full-length campaigns, brand new HD visuals, music that still hits that HAL Laboratory standard. BoxBoy plus BoxGirl isn't revolutionary, and it's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but it is a welcome addition to the series. It kind of feels like Pushmo World in the Pushmo series when they just brought it to the Wii U, even though it's a little different because now there's new mechanics and a multiplayer mode, but it still brought the series to a much more powerful system, which was nice. So 4 games later, we've made boxes, we've broken puzzles, we've warped, rocketed, exploded, hooked, shielded baby boxes from lasers, and stacked our way to the finish line. And that seems to be the full journey, because it's been 5 years now and there's been no news anything on BoxBoy. But why do some of us remember BoxBoy so fondly while most people barely know he exists? It's easy to look at BoxBoy and just say it's a minimalist game, it's just a simple 3DS game in black and white. While it is a simple game, as I've talked about throughout this video, it didn't need to be anything more. It was great for what it was. The music composed by Hirokazu Ando just genuinely was great for this game. It just fit the feel of this game perfectly. But where is Qbby now? He doesn't really seem to be anywhere. Because like I said, BoxBoy plus BoxGirl on the Switch in 2019 was the last we heard from the franchise. His only major crossover appearance is in Kirby Planet Robobot, when you can unlock a Qbby costume for Kirby using an amiibo, and this came out before BoxBoy plus BoxGirl. BoxBoy never got the mainstream love he deserved, and maybe he was never meant to. Maybe he was always destined to be Nintendo's little secret. Maybe he was always destined to be just a small Nintendo game, like a quiet passion project from HAL. Still, I can't help but wonder what could be. What if Qbby got a new adventure on Switch 2? What if we got a level creator mode like Mario Maker, but with box mechanics? What if Qbby showed up in a Smash stage and turned the platforms into boxes? There's just so much untapped potential here, but if we never get another BoxBoy game, the 4 we already have are enough. They form a perfect little arc, a complete, inventive, charming, and lovingly made series that never once sold out its core ideas. We should at least get a port of the first 3 games on the Switch or Switch 2 to make them playable again, because the only way you could play the first 3 games is if you either have a 3DS with it, buy a 3DS with it downloaded, or buy the $400+ version of it. That's a physical copy. And while this game is very fun, I just don't think it's worth $400. And that's it. I know this video wasn't super long, like the Street Pass Me Plaza video and Pushmo videos were longer, but I just want to go over the series because there's not too much to talk about as the games are fairly simple. But like I've said in this video, that's what made it so great. It was just a simple puzzle game that challenged you a little bit and never tried to do too much. So let me know if you remember the BoxBoy series, and if you want to give the series a shot, I suggest playing BoxBoy plus BoxGirl on the Switch, because if you like it, I don't know, maybe you can find other ways to play the first 3 games. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing as it really helps me out. I make a lot of retrospectives on forgotten Nintendo gems like Pushmo, Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, Nintendo Badgercade. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite Nintendo puzzle game, what are your favorite Nintendo 3DS games, and if there's any other games you want me to cover. Until next time, thank you for watching Domainy.